All right, so we're in week 4 of nursing school. And today I really want to talk about some of the posts I did on Instagram this past week and how that relates to how we can stay healthy in nursing school. And I'll share a couple of candid stories from my experience this week going to nursing school with 4 kids. First of all, just kind of an intro on what I wanted to talk about in my newsletter also. I think that one of the things that's so daunting about nursing school, at least in my newbie experience being just 4 weeks in, is that so many people talk about how awful nursing school is and how hard it is and how it's going to be the literally the hardest thing that you do in your entire life. And there's all this doom and gloom around the entire process of going through nursing school. And it was interesting when I was talking to people about going to school or going back to school as a mom and what it was going to look like. And the difference in talking to different nurses about their experience with nursing school was pretty dramatic. And then, of course, what I experienced in orientation was also a whole nother picture. So some nurses will look at it and say, yeah, it was hard, but it was so interesting. And it was just one of those things where you just have to figure out your rhythm. And really the harder part was going through the prerequisites and trying to get into nursing school. But once you're in, it's one of those things where you just kind of tip the domino and then you keep on going. And that's really what I latched onto because it's so the whole premise behind my mindset around motherhood, at least most days, is that it's really hard, especially with 2 sets of twins. And there are days that it's like so daunting and you feel like it's just, gosh, how can I even do this? And then that time passes and you gain another level of resilience and you just keep going, right? And then there was the camp of nurses that said, you really shouldn't do this. You're going to miss out on so much time with your children and you're going to regret it. And you should wait a little while, wait till they're older, or maybe just stay in with your coaching and try to advance things. Just keep going with where you're at. And you may regret actually starting nursing school. And it was a very big pull when I first started was, am I making the wrong decision as a mom? Am I going to shortchange my children? How am I going to be able to do the things that I want to do to be able to take care of them, but then also to take care of myself during this time at age 44 and a half, I'll be 45 in June. And how am I going to take care of myself and not let the stress that I was assuming was going to come with nursing school kind of take over my entire life and then affect me physiologically, which then, of course, affects how I interact with my children. So, not to paint this picture that everything has been rainbows and unicorns, it's not, but it's also not been terrible. So, if you are watching this and you're on the fence and saying, I really do I've always had a dream of helping people more. I love health promotion. I want to learn how to spread the information that I know on how to improve one's experience in life. And I love taking care of people. And I really want to go back to school for nursing. I say, start your journey and don't let the naysayers stand in your way because there's so much good that you can do with nursing. And I'm just learning about the things that the breadth of possibilities, it doesn't have to be bedside nursing. So we'll kind of tuck that away when I have more experience to speak to that topic. Again, I'm only 4 weeks in and I am by no means an expert in nursing at all. But I will say that the things that I've learned about the ability or the capability of nurses to speak to the education of patients on different self-care practices, on how to improve their self-care strategies, their health strategies in general, is so broad. Like we learned in school that you can bring in holistic measures, you can use alternative medicine practices, whether it's music therapy, exercise therapy, light exposure, you can bring in essential oils. There's so many tools in a toolkit that nurses can utilize and can educate patients, and not to mention even just nutrition and talking about nutrition strategies. So the possibilities are broad. And again, I'm still learning about it, but I was so excited to learn that this week. And I think that excitement definitely helps the motivation in the studying process. And even with the little tasks that seem so menial and like, oh my gosh, why are we having to do this or learn this? Everything builds resilience. And if we have that mindset, just like anything else in life, it makes it less daunting and less overwhelming. So just like other nursing students you've seen, maybe if you've watched other videos, the key is to stay ahead of things and to stay on top of the organization of your studies and just stay one step ahead of the syllabus so that when you come to class, you're kind of prepared for whatever information they're going to present to you, and to not get too bogged down in all the details because there's no way to remember everything. Just try to hang on to the big rocks and ask all the questions and things like that in class. But today I wanted to talk about ways that you can really keep your body healthy, your brain healthy, so that you can learn really well in nursing school, and that when stressors do arise as a mom in nursing school, that you don't kind of just dissolve into this mush and you just say, whatever, this is just way too much, I can't do it. That you keep your eye on the prize and you keep going. So I am going to share my screen and go through one of my Instagram posts this week. And it was a carousel post talking about lunch. And you may be asking yourself, why do I need to know about lunch? Like, what's the big deal about that in my success in nursing school? Nutrition is huge for us, especially if you watch any of my other videos or seen my Instagram, that I deal a lot with clients with their mineral levels and how minerals impact the nervous system, learning, adrenal health, really everything within the body, and blood sugar regulation. So we're not going to get into every detail today because that would be overwhelming, but we'll think about broad strokes and practical applications on how you can use food to support your body in nursing school. So let me see if I can do this share correctly without, okay. There's probably a faster way to do this, but I'm just gonna, there we go. That wasn't so bad. Okay, so this week I talked a lot about lunch, and this whole week theme was about minerals and how we can get more minerals on a regular basis through our food. And the lunch is a meal that we typically would skip, especially if you have classes like I do. I go Monday through Wednesday to class from 8 a.m. until 12 p.m. Well, that 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. is no big deal. You say, well, you have breakfast at like 7 and then you have lunch at like 12:15. Well, there's commute time. There's time for after class if you want to stay and ask questions. And during that time of around 12, are you like dying? Are you at 12 o'clock, you're starving and you can't think clearly and you just say, oh, forget it, I'll email a question. Then by the time you email, you've forgotten the question that may have been able to be better communicated verbally. And then you're like rushing out the door to get home to eat. So blood sugar stability plays a huge role in your ability to learn. So, and then when you think about like getting there at 8 o'clock and maybe you've eaten breakfast at like 6:15 because you don't want to be caught in the wicked hour of traffic at like 7:30, so you leave the house earlier. So now you're looking at 6:15 until noon, which is you're really at a high level of output because you're trying to absorb this massive amount of information in lecture, which can be very stressful. So that can cause even more blood sugar dysregulation. So we want to have a really solid plan on how we can optimize our nutrient intake, which also affects our blood sugar stability, and macro and micronutrients. But lunch is a big one that we can tend to skip, or we're so hungry by the time we get home. If you ask questions till 12:15, you go out to your car, you got like a 20 or 30-minute drive home. It's like 1 o'clock by the time you're sitting down for lunch. And then you're wanting to rush through it because you want to study before the kids come home. That is where we can lose out on a lot of valuable nutrients, is during lunch. So my suggestion is always to have something mapped out ahead of time. So today when I'm filming this, it's Sunday. So I'm going to have my game plan set for this week because like tomorrow we're in class from 8 until 1. So my lunch will be with me at class so that I don't get too behind on my nutrition schedule. And then lunch kind of blends into dinner and you have after school activities, and it's just you're eating in a rushed state, and that can affect digestion, which then circles back to learning. So we don't want to skimp on lunch, but how do we make it work in this level of, motherhood plus going to nursing school? So, like I said, breakfast and dinner can seem really easy and we can have a solid breakfast in place. But then when it comes to lunch, that we end up skipping it. Now, this causes a huge amount of overall stress in our system because we get a dip in blood sugar. And whenever we get a dip in blood sugar, we're going to cause a reciprocal rise in blood sugar. This affects learning over the 2 years of nursing school. If you fall into these patterns, and we find a compensatory pattern of maybe we grab something random, you grab candy or gum or worse, you just grab a coffee during that time and you kind of run through it on caffeine. Those things catch up with us. And if you're a 40 plus mom and you're going through nursing school, so you're like knocking on the door of perimenopause, these are not good things, because during this time, we really want to be supporting our adrenals. And this is when the stress of nursing school can become completely overwhelming, because we're not supporting our body nutritionally and lead to more hormonal dysregulation. So if you find yourself super easily triggered at night and you're feeling wired and you can't get into good sleep, and then the next day, remember, if we don't sleep at night, our blood sugar is going to automatically be dysregulated the next day. When we get into that pattern and we can't regulate our blood sugar, learning is so much harder, and so is retention. And that is a really big deal for nursing school. And that's where it can seem completely overwhelming to us. So skipping lunch is a huge stressor, especially to busy moms, because you have to then come home, transition to the home environment, wherever your study environment is, and continue that learning or absorptive process in a highly productive way. Because then when the kids start coming home around 3:30 or 4 o'clock, or maybe even earlier if you have high schoolers, you've got to switch modes. And then you need to be able to switch modes back and squeeze in a little bit more studying. And that's stressful. And if you're doing all of that on top of low blood sugar, that's a really big issue that you want to kind of resolve quickly, because that can lead to more perceived stress of the situation and make your whole experience just awful, right? So we don't want to be doing anything from a place of blood sugar dysregulation. So key minerals we want to focus on for lunch, or really any time, to improve our stress resilience associated with mood, anxiety, and improving our quality of life for adult women, really are magnesium, sodium, and potassium. These are so important to our stress response. So when magnesium starts getting low, and maybe next time we'll look at a hair test and see a low magnesium or a magnesium loss pattern, then we start having more issues with regulating the stress response. It can also impact our thyroid, slow our metabolic rate. And magnesium is involved in so many different reactions within the body, and it's a cofactor for many different reactions. So we want to be trying to hit at least 320 milligrams per day of magnesium. Now, when it comes to potassium, it's set kind of low at 2,600 milligrams most time for patients, or excuse me, for clients, no patients yet. It'll be more around the lines of 5,000 milligrams per day. But the RDA right now is 2,600 milligrams. Sodium is 3,800 milligrams. And we need to be consuming this through whole food sources. So remember, like, none of this is medical advice. So don't go out and start getting supplements right away, because if your body is not in the right place mineral wise and you start loading up on magnesium, that can affect your calcium, it can affect your potassium. So we want to think about what foods can we organize for lunch. If I know these minerals here, if I start looking for foods that are really high in these minerals and I pair them with a protein, boom, I have my strategy for nursing school. And I have something that simplifies this whole process of how the heck do I feed myself? Because also, the last thing we want to be doing during nursing school is saying, hey, I need to go on a diet. This is a time for me to go on XYZ diet, XYZ extreme diet. It actually would be so much more harmful to your system, especially doing any type of restrictive eating or restrictive time frame of eating, right? So let's look at some examples. So these minerals, they do play a role in hormonal regulation and cortisol and adrenaline. And by consuming them, this reduces our perception of stress. So the stress may be there. I have a test this upcoming week. It's the math test. It's very basic math, but I have to get a really high grade or you get an F. So I think it's like a 90 or an F. So you can miss basically 2 out of 50, and it's very fast time. And so if you miss one conversion with just a slip up, you're done. I mean, that's it. You have to pass it to continue on. That's a big level of pressure, but it's even huger if I am low in my minerals. So as a mom, you're not just going to school. I've got to make lunches today. I've got to make dinner. I've got to get everybody ready for school tomorrow. Of course, my husband's helping just tremendously. He's amazing, but you still have all these other things to do. You got to clean the house, you got to get groceries, you got to everything on top of nursing school. So remember, your stressors are not just the act of studying, it's everything. So you want to remember that when we're thinking, oh, is this really that important that I need to look for magnesium-rich foods on top of studying for this math test? Yes, it is. And it's really important to take the minutes to prepare them and find strategies on how to simplify that process. So remembering that magnesium activates that parasympathetic nervous system. We all know this going through nursing school. Sympathetic, we're stimulating, we are in fight or flight, we are running from the tiger. We do not want to be there long. It does, in those initial stages, help you to absorb more information, really turns on your attention. But if you're doing it for a long period of time and we're in this constant go, 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 which motherhood can be alone, you will deplete your minerals. Nursing school will become overwhelming. It will become almost seemingly a daunting or impossible task. Could that be the case of many people that had expressed their dislike for the whole process and saying it was just awful and da-da-da, versus the people that said, yeah, it was actually kind of cool and interesting. It was hard, but it was interesting and it was totally worth it. Could our mineral levels impact that experience? Yes. And then potassium helps to balance out sodium and other electrolytes, and it deepens sleep. We need that recuperative sleep. And then both magnesium and potassium bind neurotransmitter GABA receptors, and that helps again to calm the nervous system. So, like I said, here are our combos. Now, if you're looking at these and saying, okay, I typically stop and grab like a hamburger or in a side salad, or I'll get like a bowl of chili and a baked potato. And this, how in the world am I gonna, this does not seem palatable to me. Keep an open mind and keep thinking about things outside the box, because literally your nutrition strategy can change your entire process within nursing school. So I look at the first example, winter squash, very high in potassium, super cheap. You can get them even at places like Walmart. You can get them at farmers markets. They last for a long time. You can get them frozen and cubed, though you're going to pay more for it. They're very affordable vegetables, and they contain so much potassium and other micronutrients. They're also a dense form of carbohydrate, which is very, again, important for not only for insulin sensitivity, but it's also important to support our mood and balance our blood sugar. Swiss chard is a dark leafy green, and you can find it again at farmers markets. You can find it in regular grocery stores. Get what you can afford. If the organic does not look good and it's very, very expensive, get the conventional. The nutrients is what's most important. So if right now in nursing school, I know I'm on a tighter budget in nursing school because I am not working full-time and not bringing in coaching clients. I'm going to get what looks good if it's not available in the garden. So we'll talk about the garden another day. Kiwi is another great source of magnesium. Kiwi can be pretty expensive. So when it's in season, usually in the fall around my area is when you're going to find kiwi at a better price. Get the kiwi then, and it's also very high in copper and whole food vitamin C, two very important minerals for collagen synthesis, which we all care about, right, for our skin and hair, but it also plays a role in our joint and as well as recovery strategies. Okay, key one, canned or baked wild-caught salmon. You can get the flash frozen fish. You do not have to go pay $28 a pound for a fresh wild-caught salmon at a specialty store. You can get the flash frozen fish at like Costco or BJ's or whatever, big outlet store you have. Or a lot of times I just get the canned wild caught salmon and use that. Wild caught salmon is tremendous for us. It's very high in magnesium, but it's also rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which are calming to inflammatory process. Guess what stress does? Drives up inflammation, and that can affect our blood sugar. So salmon is a great strategy. How would you do this? Bake the squash, maybe even 2 squashes on the weekend, or when you have a minute. You can either just cut it down the middle and save the time in peeling and cubing it. But I will say it's much faster. The end result time-wise is to peel it first and then cut it and cube it and get the seeds out. It's so much faster in the end because you don't have to scrape the squash because you can't eat the rind, the peel on it. Swiss chard, you can saute it ahead of time, or you can you can have it just ready to go, washed in a bag. So you can grab it as soon as you get home, add a little olive oil and flash it really quick in the pan, and it'll be done in less than 2 minutes. Kiwi, cut it and eat it. Salmon, you can either batch bake it, so it'll be good for like 3 days, or you can open a can and you can put it right on top of your plate of winter squash, Swiss chard, kiwi, And then you've got your salmon. Of course, to this, if you needed additional fat for stability, you could add in some walnuts, you could add in cashews, you can add in peanuts, you can add in olives, avocado. Any of those would be good options. So another choice is sauteed spinach, which you can get the big bag of spinach, or you can get fresh spinach, or you can grow it in your garden. Black beans, you can do canned, or you can do them in a pressure cooker. I tend to do them in a pressure cooker from dried because they're way cheaper. But if that's too much for you and you'd rather get the can, go for it. And then carrots, excuse me. Carrots are a great source of sodium, naturally occurring sodium. So you can, and they're also great for binding excess estrogen. So great source of fiber. You can do them, just peel a carrot and eat it, or you can have it steamed in advance, which is what I like to do, prep them ahead of time. So you've got your 2 carbohydrates, and then protein. Pork tenderloin is excellent for potassium. It's also a tremendously good source of protein. And you can buy the pork tenderloin, just go ahead and bake it on the weekend, and then you will have it ready to go for 5 days of lunches. Remember, a palm size is about 30 grams of protein, so make sure you're getting 30 grams per meal. Some other options, baked plantains. I say baked instead of in the pan because then you have to clean the pan after you do the plantains and it takes a minute versus just slicing them and putting them on a baking sheet with parchment paper. You can do that on the weekend, have them in a container, pull them out, put them on your plate, and you're good to go. Broccoli, do it from frozen. So you don't have to spend more time cooking or cleaning it and washing it. But if the frozen, if it doesn't, if they have a good sale on fresh broccoli, do that. Either way, it's still, you're going to get that fiber, the magnesium, the sodium in there. Strawberries, of course, you can buy them frozen and thaw them overnight, or I just tend to dump a whole bunch into a bowl and put a lid on it. And by the time I'm ready for them during the week, they're ready to go. They're going to be a little softer than they are fresh, but they still contain the micronutrients we need because remember, frozen is going to be frozen at the moment it's picked. So sometimes it contains even more micronutrients than those have been picked in across the country, shipped in a temperature and chemically controlled truck with the gases for ripening, and then sent on the store shelf. You can make ground turkey burgers in advance. Do your plantains on one baking sheet and ground turkey burgers on the bottom. We could do a whole tutorial on ground turkey burgers, but they are an excellent and super easy source of protein. And you can get the ground turkey, in large amounts at the grocery store and make 2 pounds at a time. So you're all set to go for the week. So you have a good amount of protein at each lunch. And of course, dark chocolate, loaded with magnesium, good for antioxidants. And we all need chocolate in our life. So please don't cut out chocolate by any means, unless you don't like it. And then last option is baked potato with the skin. You have potassium and magnesium. Make sure you wash the skin really well before you consume it. You can have that with sliced cucumbers, some sauteed kale, an avocado, a can of tuna. Just, choose the tuna that's going to be lower in mercury. They have different types of tuna, albacore, skipjack. Skipjack's actually a little lower in mercury. And then they have some like Safe Catch brand that's actually branded with measured lower mercury. But don't get too tangled up in that. As long as you're not consuming tuna daily, you should be fine. And then, of course, sauerkraut to protect our gut, but we'll do another lesson on that. So you can see you can tweak these, but the basic template is you want like a quarter of your plate, starchy, complex carbohydrates, half of your plate, leafy greens, vegetables, and then you also have a quarter of your plate to a little bit more of protein. And then you can add in fat as you'd like for satiety. But the last thing we want to do is skip lunch and then go the rest of the afternoon nibbling on stuff, grabbing a handful of crackers, a handful of chips, some chocolate, having a coffee. And then we're all messed up with our metabolism and our nutrition, and we're off when it comes to sleep. And then we're waking up in the middle of the night because we have blood sugar dysregulation, or our liver's off because we don't have micronutrients. If you're not eating lunch right now, start slowly. Give it several weeks to build up and just build that consistency. The top tips, ready? So we're going to prepare our food ahead of time, just like I just talked about. Look at your week and make sure you have some scheduled time for lunch. Take a minute. I sit on our new table on our porch that we got from my mother-in-law, or from my sister-in-law, which is wonderful. I sit out there and eat my lunch in the sun. And sometimes I'll look through my notes while I'm doing it because that keeps me from inhaling my food and getting onto my studying. I just kind of take a bite and I'm chewing while I'm reading over class notes. It's much more relaxing to me. Do what works best for you. So you chew your food, you slow down your pace from rushing home from class, and you can absorb those nutrients. If you're out all day, like tomorrow, I have to bring my lunchbox. It's on me to do that. I'm not going to grab anything out of the vending machine because that's going to set me up for less success in nursing school. And if my lunch time frame is short, I'm not going to have a huge salad with a bunch of kale and everything else in it because I won't chew it. I just know me as a mom. It goes in my mouth and I swallow in less than 2 bites. Two sets of twins, I am like a snake when I eat sometimes. It's literally terrible. And then I'm bloated and I feel unwell. I can get constipated and it's not comfortable. So making sure you're chewing your food. So if my time frame is short, say I'm like Tuesdays, sometimes it's shorter, then I will plan a smoothie, or I'll have overnight oats, or I'll have something where it requires less mechanical chewing and I can get the nutrients in at the same time. Typically it's a smoothie, so I can still get in those plants during that midday meal. So I hope this was super supportive of you, and I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that this is going to give you some tools as a busy mom going through nursing school. Please like and share this post because I'm really trying to grow this channel. I don't see much out there for us as moms who are really want to go through nursing school. Real life moms that are doing this and really trying to make a difference in the world, that have a passion for helping others. So if you could like and share this post, I'm getting the hang of this. So go ahead and give me tips. I welcome all of them. And thank you so much for watching. You can head over to my Instagram at Amy Slater Coaching. And then also I have a website, amyslatercoaching.com. And you can also find me writing for Nutrivore as well as US Wellness Meets, where I post blog posts from here time to time. Thank you so much again. And we'll see you again in 2 more weeks, and I'll be able to report in on my math test progress. Okay, bye-bye.